I love it. They should put weird stuff on this TV behind us.
Yeah. It's going to be random stuff just showing up. It's going to be like, whose line is it anyways, where you have to like act out stuff based on the audience reaction.
Is this security improv? Let's do it.
Whose slide is it anyways?
That's right.
Oh, whose slide is it?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get started. Hey, I'm Bryce, so lead organizer here at BSides, and really excited about this. We got 3 people that are really strong in the cybersecurity community here in Utah. So super excited to hear what they have to say about technology in general. So I'm gonna let each of them introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of go into some questions, and then we'll kind of open it up if there's any questions from the audience. So with that, I'm gonna pass the mic to Grifter.
I have one.
He has his own.
I've got my own.
That was
I'm a.
like less of a physical thing and more like a metaphorical.
I'm a bit of a prima donna. I needed my own. I was like, can I get a headset so I can move around if I feel like I need to? I don't want to be restrained. So hi, I'm Grifter. Hi. I have been in Utah for probably, I think it's like 21 years now. I started out in the community doing stuff with 2600 Salt Lake City back in 2000, right? But so I've been around for a while. I am a full-time threat hunter for RSA, and then by night I run all the technical operations for the Black Hat security briefings, and I'm one of the lead organizers of DEF CON. I'm also on the CFP review board for DEF CON and Black Hat, and I do other stuff too, but that's enough, I think.
Some good stuff, though.
Thanks. That means a lot coming from you.
All right, my name is Snow. I'm still somewhat new to Utah. I've been here about 4 years now. We actually moved here on the flip of a quarter, quite literally. So that kind of shows my choice of character.
That makes us feel special.
Whoops. But no, I love it. Been here for 4 years. I focus on social engineering and physical security. At DEF CON 22, I won a black badge for the social engineering capture the flag. And then at St. Con 2017, I was on the winning team with JC and Davis, which I don't see his face. But we won the Vault, which is a physical security challenge. And I'm also on the DEF CON CFP review board as well.
And my name is Mike. I'm also known as Dark Matter. I'm not sure why I'm up here with these two. They're freaking awesome. But I created a project called the Wi-Fi Cactus. I don't know if you've heard of that. I didn't bring it with me, but I brought a picture of me with it. So I'll pass this around. It has some pretty interesting stuff on it that happened in China.
That's a legit picture, man.
Yeah. Yeah, this picture's crazy. There's a lot of history. I've been able to go to a lot of different places. I love to travel. My background's computer science. I love hacking stuff. I've been hacking stuff since I was a little kid. I'm from southern Utah, so local Utah native. Been here all my life. Yeah, and just I really, really love hacking on stuff. So that's about me.
Okay, great. So gonna ask a question, and then you guys can just like jump in and kind of give your input. So really one thing that a lot of people ask is what kind of drives you guys to give back to the community? Because I feel like all 3 of you are have done a lot for this industry, the community. You're well known, and what kind of drives you to keep doing that every day? So
Who first?
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay, so when I first got into this community, I reached out to 2 individuals for advice. The first one was an advocate for women in tech, so I thought, she would have some good kind of starters for me. And it turns out her career advice was that I work for her for free as a project manager. I'm not joking, that is serious. And then the second one was someone who focused on social engineering. And they pretty much said I would have to take a minimum wage job, and the only company that would hire me was their company. So that really sucked. I did not like that advice. I was very lucky to have an amazing mentor, JC. But as far as giving back to the community, I don't want someone to be in that position, especially someone who's new, who tries to find advice and it's bullshit. I don't think that's fair. Actually, being here at BSides is really cool because this is where I gave my very first presentation in 2015. So I really enjoy doing presentations and trainings. I built a Black Hat training that focuses on things that I haven't seen before because it was important to me. I wanted to make sure all these aspects were in one training because that's something that I searched for. So mentorship and giving back to the community is very important to me.
May I?
You may.
Well, the interesting thing about me is like I've gotten a lot from the community, so I feel kind of obligated to give back because there's always been people there who have helped me out. And in fact, the whole concept of the Wi-Fi cactus started literally because of a tweet between me and Grifter because there was a conference called ShmooCon that I didn't realize I was as close as I was, and he's like, no, you get here now. It doesn't matter if you have a ticket or whatever. And that led to me meeting with Darren Kitchen. And so it's like now I want to give back. I want to talk. I want to give my advice. I want to help out people with data, do data analysis and stuff like that as much as I can. I try to be pretty active in there's a Kismet. Kismet's a wireless a tool that we use, and that we have a Discord. I like to be active in there, as well as come to a bunch of conferences. And so, I mean, it's like I build like the things that I do on shoulders of giants. And so I think that all of us need to have like, be willing to give back. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think that legitimately it parallels with my experience as well, which is just like I wouldn't have the career that I have today if it wasn't for, things like, simple things like going to 2,600 meetings started me out getting face-to-face meetups with folks, and that led to going to DEF CON and then being involved in DEF CON and helping out on the staff. And like legitimately everything I have in my career is owed to this community. And so I think if you are the type of person who one, doesn't recognize that, or two, recognizes that and then chooses to do nothing about giving back, you're a horrible person. Let's just put that out there right now. You know who you are. You're squirming in your seat right now. You know about the meetings. You just choose not to, participate. I think that's the thing. Is it's just like I legitimately owe my my entire career and the means for caring for my family to everybody in this room, right? So it would be selfish not to do something.
And the opportunities that it affords you too, to like to have a community and have resources, like there's job offers and things that I've gotten that just would have never happened had I not done these things or given back or been a part of this community. So I think it's really important to the networking aspect and the community part.
Yeah, I think it's also important to point out that like that is not my default state. Like to be out in front of people, to do this is not my default state, right? Going to a meeting and like walking in the first time and there's a dozen or 24 people there who all seem to already know each other, but I'm new and it's awkward and whatever. Like that is about as close to my nightmare scenario as you could possibly put together. But you do it anyway, right? You do it because like how else will you make those connections? I can't count the number of job opportunities and things that have come out of 801 Labs or DC 801 just from people knowing each other face to face and being like, oh yeah, we're hiring some folks, and they're like, oh well, I have been in a room with you multiple times and don't hate you. You should come work with us, So that happens a lot. Sometimes you end up hating each other, but at least it started out positive. No, yeah, I think that's like get out there and get a chance to meet the people who are in your field.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's some great advice. So will you guys describe a time that you guys failed hard, and then, you know, optionally what you learned from it, right? So.
Optionally, like that. Unless you learn nothing at all. I've never failed before, Bryce, so I'm gonna take a pass on this one.
Tell me more.
No, I can share, I guess, one experience, which was, you know, speaking of career stuff, where I was interviewing at a place to do some red team stuff. They had known of me, brought me in because of my reputation and everything. I met with the team, I did all this stuff. I met with all these different levels of managers, multiple interviews, all whatever. And then I got to like the CISO, and for whatever reason, we just did not click. Like I could tell like within minutes of like chatting with this guy that I was like, yeah, I'm not getting this job. Like it's just not gonna happen. He hates me, and not quite sure why, right? But that sucked, right? Because I was like, oh, well, this would be really cool, and it's a cool opportunity. I really like the folks who are on the team. Everything up to that point looked positive, and in the end, it ended up, you know, not going the way that I hoped. And I think in the end, it just came down to my personality, which is a difficult thing to like absorb, right? You're like, oh, he hated me as a person, right? I have the skill set to do the things that they're asking for, but I'm just not likable enough, right? So that was, that was difficult. But the lesson that I took from that was that like sometimes like it doesn't matter. Like you can think that you check all the boxes or do all the right things, and in the end, it won't go your way, right? And you can't feel like you're owed that, or just because you do check the boxes on the technical aspect of something that means that you, you deserve a position or something. It's like, no, my accomplishments in the community or like public speaking stuff, authoring books, all that kind of stuff did not matter to this dude. He just didn't like me, right? And I was like, oh, well, that's an interesting pill to have to swallow, right?
So a time that I failed in my career actually landed me in handcuffs. Not the fuzzy ones either, unfortunately. So I had a client in the Midwest, and I was doing physical security assessments for them. And right out of the gate, he pretty much took control of the assessment. He dictated what my pretext was, so who I was pretending to be on site, and he wouldn't have any flexibility there. I had to pretend to be the same person on every site. Normally, this is not something I would do, and I knew in my gut something was wrong. And so what happened was I go and I'm starting these assessments. I'm on site number 5, and site number 5 kind of gets suspicious, calls ahead to site number 6 saying, or calls ahead to other ones saying, hey, this is kind of funky. You might want to check into it when this person gets there. So I get there, and I was greeted by this manager who ended up calling the cops. So for me, that was a huge failure. But that was a failure because I knew in my gut something was wrong, and I let the client have control of the situation. It just really changed things going forward for me. I really learned what things I needed to have control of compared to what the client could have control of. A lot of information security, if you're consulting, is really kind of figuring out what limits you put and what you're in control of. So that was a big lesson for me.
When I was younger, I worked for a company, an engineering company, and we were building a project for the South Korean government. And
way to clarify there, buddy.
Had to throw that in there for a second. And we were having a lot of struggles with getting the project done on time, and that project ultimately turned into a giant failure. And I didn't want it to fail, and I kept trying and trying not to fail and trying and putting more effort into it, and didn't realize that, guess what, sometimes the inevitability is failure, and it's okay to accept that and like put a stop on it and move on. And so what that project taught me was to fail fast. So if you are going to fail, learn how to fail fast at something, so that way you don't continue working for months and months, destroying relationships, hurting people. And ultimately, I left that company on bad terms, and that was something that I never wanted to do ever again after that. And it's still, and like in my mind, I think back on it, and I'm like, this could have been a really cool project because it was for a missile targeting system. And it's like, that's awesome, building missile-type projects. And
for South Korea.
For South Korea.
South.
So that's clear. And, you know, now it's like, what if it would have been successful? What if it would have worked, you know, and how cool would that be? Instead, now I'm talking about it as, you know, one of my biggest failures. But I like failure, actually. I mean, if anybody follows me on Twitter, like 90% I would say is me failing and doing stupid things. So, but I feel like when you fail, that's when you learn the most, right? Because like something bad happens and it's like everything becomes clear, right? Because whatever you're doing is completely garbage. And that's usually when I'm learning the best, so.
Awesome, yeah. So, I mean, I think everybody fails in their careers, right? So it's what you do next, right? And then, what do you guys think is the biggest issue that our industry is facing, right? And, you know, is there anything, you know, we as people should be doing more, right? So.
Who's taking that?
Grifters, I heard grifters filling this one.
Yeah, we were joking about some stuff earlier, and they're like, "Say it, say it." I think honestly, it's for me at least. What I see is that there are folks who are coming into the industry who are purely monetarily motivated, right? They're like, the world has caught on to the fact that that the cybers pays pretty well, right? And so it's like, oh, we've got degrees for that. We've got certifications for that. We've got 2-year tech, you know, school, whatever version of a degree. You know, and so you've got people who are coming out of these, you know, diploma mill type of situations or certification mills who don't feel like we feel, right? Where we do this because we love it, right? And it's fun, and coming to a conference like this and being able to talk to other people just about doing it is an exciting prospect to us. That I feel like is, it freaks me out a little bit, you know? I don't want to see things get watered down with folks who are like, oh, this is a really difficult problem. Someone else should deal with this. Where I think the hacker mentality is, this is a really difficult problem. I'm never going to sleep until I figure out how to solve this, right? Like that is something that has made you know, many of us successful in the careers that we've chosen because of that mindset. You know, it may not be the most physically healthy thing, but it's incredibly rewarding. And I think if you don't have that, if that piece is missing, it's a dangerous thing to put somebody like that in charge of the keys to your kingdom and say, defend our organization. And you're like, well, I'll do it from 9 to 5 because that's how much I care. But I won't think about it a moment after that. I'm going to go home and turn on the sports ball, and I'm going to watch that until I have to wake up the next day and come back and think about this problem again, instead of just being like, I'm going to order pizza, who's with me? You know, like, I think that freaks me out.
To add to that, I think that, you know, college graduates are kind of coming out of school with, you know, thinking that they're going to get a job right away. But a problem with that is academia isn't updating their material as fast as shit in our industry is changing, right? Think about math and algebra. That stuff doesn't change, right? The college material doesn't change. That's because it doesn't change. No one's doing groundbreaking research on this. But in our industry, stuff changes so often. So when you have all these college graduates looking for jobs, they're already behind the mark. So I think the skill set gap is a pretty big problem in our industry.
Yeah, I don't have a degree. Like, I don't know that, like, I mean, I tried to go to school and do the like college thing. I couldn't do it. Like, I got into like classes and they'd be like, this is how it is. And I'd be like, well, that's not correct. You know, like, I do this every day right now, and I can tell you right now that that's not how that works. You fail. Like, oh, wait, what? Hold up. No, I mean, like, I'm winning at the actual career. Shouldn't that mean I pass this course? Like, I was just like, I'm not going to get into crippling debt so that you can teach me the stuff that mattered 10 years ago.
Well, I'll tell you, as someone with student debt sitting up here,
My dog.
I'm a little bit jealous of you, not going to lie. I think that these issues they've talked about up here are really important. And another one that kind of piggybacks with this that I've seen is like people are learning coding and they're learning how to build things and they're learning how to put things together and they're not learning how to do it in a method that's secure, right? So we're taking this up here right now.
No, you're talking. We're taking
My bad. I think that security needs to be a framework that's from the ground up, right? It's like you don't hack something together and then ship that like the Facebook model, right? It's like get it out there and then we'll fix it later because we can patch later. Why aren't we doing more in the early stages of development to implement security? And I think that like the prevalence of all the breaches and stuff that are happening, I mean, it's like we've got to look at things like earlier on in the development cycle. And so that's something I think schools and stuff like that is a huge thing they're missing. Let's teach secure coding. Let's start out of the gate teaching you, guess what? Buffer flow exists. Let's teach you, how to avoid SQL issues. Let's teach programmers that PHP is bad.
Period.
Just kidding. Anyway, sorry. But it's actually Perl. Perl sucks. But that sort of thing that I think the industry needs to start addressing that earlier and earlier in the learning cycle. So you bring in a junior developer who starts coding and they'll start making some of those decisions, because there's been tons of times when I've been working on projects and it's always like, we'll get to security later. Like, we'll add additional authentication. We'll add better encryption later, right? And like nowadays, you don't have to have it that way with like Let's Encrypt project. And if you're doing web-based projects, it's literally a plugin in most web libraries now to be able to get SSL encryption on your site. And so there's just so many more tools that are available. And I think that it's really important that we start using those. So guess what? All of our info doesn't end up in somebody's database.
I think that's hard though too, because then you talk about like, oh well, you can gain these things and add these things almost like as plugins, but then you're reliant on whoever it was who wrote that plugin. I think that's like scary as hell too. Is that
True.
You're like, oh, I've got these different reliability.
But it's from the internet. You can trust it.
Oh, fair. That's fair. All right, never mind, guys. We're good. Yeah.
Can I get a show of hands here for all of the college students? Okay, what about people who are new to the industry? Right? That's a lot of you guys. I really encourage everyone to go out and get involved because school is not enough, right? Go out and take specialized trainings from people in this industry who are actually doing these things day to day. Get involved in the community, do CTFs, things like that. I think that's really going to be beneficial to your careers, especially as you're getting into this industry.
I encourage you to drop out and spend that money on stuff to break.
Or
but who am I?
Let me offer you another version of this. Go get a laptop, get a wireless card, and start just sniffing Wi-Fi and start doing stuff. Like Snow was saying, like go out and start doing stuff, get involved. Because you're going to get a lot of practical knowledge. And stay in school, kids.
Or don't.
See, this is why we're on opposite sides.
That guy just got it. This thing has fallen off of my face again, Pope. I have weirdly shaped ears or something. Year after year, I can't keep this thing on my face.
All right. So, yeah, I really respect all three of you. I feel like, you're examples of, everyone here can take something away from you. So, and we're going to move now to kind of like an open format where I'm going to walk down and people can ask questions if they want for a little bit. Right?
Oh, snap.
Except for JC.
Yeah, look at him. He was
not him.
JC was literally going like that, not even like conscious of he was doing it. He was down here just like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a bloodbath.
All right, so if you have a question, raise your hand, and I'll come on down.
The guy in the last row, of course, is the dude with the question. Go ahead, no, jog it out.
Just yell it out. Jog it out.
Well, oh, him first. You have to walk up here.
Any tips on transitioning from blue team to red?
So I would say don't. Okay. The question was, any tips on transitioning from blue team to red? So here's the thing. So here's my take on the whole blue team, red team thing. Red team, super, super fun, right? I get it. Super fun. Did it for years. Still do it like part-time. The problem with being red team is that it is super sexy and everybody wants to be like, you know, the pew, 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 check me out, exploit, pow, you know? Like we all can't be Bryce. So learn red team stuff and apply that within the blue team. So when you're looking for things within your own environment, whether that's from a standard analyst standpoint or if you're doing traffic analysis, that kind of stuff, take the attacks that you want to learn how to do and then do them, but then monitor how that affects your log data, how that looks on the wire. So take PCAPs and see what it looks like on the wire, so that you not only do you get the chance to do the red team portion of it, that is fun. Everybody loves seeing calc when nobody asked for it. But also know what those attacks look like on the wire, and then it will make you a better defender. I go into a lot of companies and talk to them frequently where you have blue team folks who are like, they're just blue team. And I'm like, you're doing yourself a disservice. Go do red team stuff as well, but don't jump ship. Like there's no reason to jump ship. It's like I said, it sounds cool and it's fun to say like, I'm a hacker for hire, you know, that sounds neat. The reality is if somebody asks you what your job is on a plane as you fly off somewhere, you're like, I'm an accountant. Because as soon as you say, I break stuff and people pay me to do it, they're like, tell me all about it. And you're like, I don't want to know you. We're not friends. No. So I would say don't transition from blue team. Stay there. Just do the red team stuff and figure out how that can better protect your organization. Sorry if that's not the answer.
As a counterpoint,
you son of a, come at me.
I'm someone who
and drop out
hasn't traditionally worked an official red team type position in a company before, but that doesn't mean like if you're not passionate about it, like go do it, like go get involved with it, like make that a thing, because like you've got to commit to it and do it. There's a lot of work to it. Like I've done that with active wireless assessments, and I quit my last job in order to do those types of things. So I left my job of almost 5 years that was very safe and secure and in semiconductor manufacturing to do my own thing now. And so like if you really want to do something, like commit yourself to do it. And so that's what I would say is if that's something
fair. If you hate blue team, then don't do it because you're going to be bad at it, right? But but I'm just saying, like, a lot of people are like, oh, red team's where the cool stuff is at. You can do a lot of cool stuff. Hey, how dare you? There's a lot of cool stuff you can do on the blue team side as well.
But I think, too, coming from a blue background, moving to red makes you so much more valuable rather than someone just coming straight out, because you've seen what attackers are doing. So I think both of the advice is good. Go out there, learn what you can from where you are, but if you transition, I think that makes you more of a valuable person having that background.
Purple team for life.
Yeah. Purple team.
Dude, I think your mic's like touching your
It's not. That's not me. I don't care. It's not. That's not me making the sound.
There are no questions by proxy. Just.
In the world of infinite knowledge and power, I guess, in the internet, there is GitHub repositories for like awesome everything, awesome blue team, awesome red team, awesome everything. Kids that are either in college, graduates, postgraduates, getting into the industry, just migrating from systems and tech, what are some good areas to focus on first? Because it seems like right now we're just in this overwhelming waterfall of education. Where do you start?
Good night.
Dude, that's a good question.
That was a super good. If you could answer that, that would be incredible. Yeah.
For me personally, it's like, what do I already know how to do, and then try to tackle those problems and use the skill sets that I know how to do. Like I tried to do a project with a new, like PHP framework a few years ago, and it sucked. I had to learn new framework and I had to learn a language, and I wasn't comfortable. So it's like tackle problems with tools you know how to do, especially if it's a hard problem you're not sure how to do. So that's what I would say. Like, start going down your wheelhouse and then build out your wheelhouse and expand and add more tools to your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I think also for me, I go to a lot of conferences, right? So whenever I'm sitting in a talk and someone says something and I'm just like, I have no idea what they said. Like, I'm just like, let me write that down because homeboy's got to buy a book, right? So for me, it's just like where I see gaps, I just go look for, some information on that. I like at least having an inch deep knowledge on most things, and then obviously I have my areas that I specialize on. But I think to your point about like GitHubs and there's awesome this and awesome that, a lot of people are, I think, afraid to reach out to the folks who are running those projects and things. And honestly, if you reach out and say, hey, you should, or I'd like to help in some way, or I'd like to talk to you about this, they're like, some help? That would be amazing, So don't be afraid to reach out to the folks who are working on projects and say, what can I do to help make this better, right?
I think taking things in little bite-sized chunks helps. So rather than saying, I want to go out and I want to learn red teaming, right? Stick with something small, like I want to learn wireless. And then from there, expand to another area. But just kind of taking things as small as you can to expand upon, I think is a good way to break into
Fun
it.
size.
Yeah, fun size.
Fun size. Fun size.
So far back.
You in the back.
So if you were a hiring manager, what would you do? If you hired someone, how would you help them address their skills gap? Coming straight out of academia.
So the question, did everyone hear the question?
I think they got it.
Okay.
Did you hear
All
that?
right, we're good.
Okay. No. What? You son of a lean.
So from a hiring manager, what would you look at for someone coming straight out of academia? I would look at what they're doing besides school. So are they involved in projects? Do they have their own projects? Do you have a blog? Do you have a GitHub? I look for things like that to see where you're passionate and where you're spending your time. That I think is one of the biggest things, again, going back to passion and really making or seeing that you're spending time on things like that.
Yeah, I think encouraging that kind of behavior is huge. Again, I think you mentioned just going out and doing it just for the practical knowledge aspect of it. Like, there's a difference from reading about it or watching talks on YouTube and stuff like that to actually trying it out yourself.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, like when you see people like us presenting something and giving you information, like guess what, that information may or may not be true, right? Like go try what they're telling you to do.
If it came from me, it's probably not true.
So, so I think that's an important thing. And so in the case of, what am I looking for? Like, who are the people that are doing? Because doers are the people that are like putting stuff together, building projects. They have a 3D printer in their basement. They're up all night tweaking it so that they can actually get it to print. It's that type of people that I'm looking for personally. And I think that will truly thrive in the current state of this industry.
Yeah, there's a different level of I think it's just a completely different level of ownership and understanding when you do something yourself. The first time I ever picked a lock was like one of the best days ever, right? I remember the sound of that padlock opening.
Tell us more.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can open anything, anywhere, right? Like it was incredible. Like that rush from it, you still get it, by the way. It doesn't matter how many years you're picking locks. When you pick a lock, it doesn't matter if it's like a Master 3, that should just fall off when you like breathe on it. You're like clack, and you just look around the room like, you heard that, right? I opened that. That's what that sound was. But it gives you a different understanding of physical security for one. Or when RFID stuff was new and like cloning someone's badge and then taking that cloned badge and going beep and the door opens, you're like,
and then it's next level when you have a chip in your hand and you go beep.
You guys are crazy. Hashtag YOLOSEC.
YOLO for life.
Jeez, I'm not putting a thing in my hand, no. I would immediately install something in my brain if I could Johnny Mnemonic things. Well, I'd want to be able to access it. Johnny really just carried it around. Yeah, whatever, sorry. What were we talking about?
What was the question? Did we answer it?
Did we answer that question? Maybe? Yes? No? Thumbs up. We got the thumbs up.
So,
you can see that?
Audience for Snow.
So that's a good question. So pretty much, I will not let the client dictate what pretexts I can use. That's one of the things I do. I go out and I do open source intelligence gathering, and I figure out what makes the most sense, and I build my pretext from there. That's something I don't believe the client should have control over. The second they start controlling things, it starts
What's a pretext?
A pretext is who I'm pretending to be. So I might pretend to be an auditor or an internal employee. So by my findings online, it might make sense that I'm someone very specific because of just different things I find. But again, giving the client less control over that is more important, because when they start getting more control, it kind of feels rigged. I mean, in that sense, it really was. I got stopped right away, and I could have continued and been a lot more successful.
Okay, great. More questions from the audience? Anyone? Hands?
Real quick,
If we could get, as soon as these guys ask their question, if we could get someone in the back to ask a question, that would be amazing. No, Bryce, you keep coming forward.
Bryce is going to steps in today.
You said real quick, and then
it's fine. He already made it. You
got it.
You killed that time.
Sorry.
I was
Sorry.
gonna kill the time, but
I got it for you.
Just a
I murdered it.
engineer, so I don't really know all the security stuff, but what are some of the go-to tools that you guys use, and what are some of their limitations, and what you think they could do better?
I can relate
Did
to
he say
this
I'm
because
just
I've
an
done
engineer? Is that
I've
what he
done
said?
quite a bit of UI. Yeah, you're not
I'm
just
just an engineer.
Just a UI. No, I mean, like, I've done a lot of UI type stuff, and some of the go-to tools for me is like Burp Suite, even just the Community Edition, which is free, and then even Postman is another good one for playing around with that. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And then just using like Chrome and Firefox's built-in inspection tools, and then I usually just build my own back and forth between back end and front. I mean, you're front end UI, so you're